can't stay stuck where we are. We're so excited. We have one of the leaders in autonomous driving, and specifically LiDAR technology. His company is about 20 minutes that direction, has just been hiring hundreds and hundreds of people trying to transform the world to autonomous driving, and he's here with us today, Mr. Jason Eichenholz.
Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. All right, Jim, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you. We're going to talk a little bit about this thing called transportation. So the future of transportation, this is an image from one of our sensors. This is the data of our system looking at Palm Drive in Silicon Valley. And you can see out and the amount of information you're able to see for the first time in a 3D sensing camera that will actually meet the needs of the autonomous vehicle industry. So, but you can't do there and get there unless you understand the past. And here's Henry Ford with his Model T, 1908, where that thing, so 110 years ago, that went into production, the longest production vehicle until the VW Beetle came out. You look at that car and you go, wow. I have a theory that if Henry Ford came back to life and looked at what we'd be doing, he would say, what the F have you guys been doing for the last 100 years? Where are the flying cars? What's going on? Because frankly, the transportation that went mass scale with the Model T and the transportation between today is roughly the same. And they are close in the 1950s. They said, hey, well, look at this, you're gonna have self-driving cars, we can all play games and hang out and play Scrabble, not to mention, the wind would blow those pieces elsewhere. They had that vision. And then things went nowhere. And that's the challenge. And if you look at these two quotes, both from BMW and from GM, they are facing an existential crisis. You have high-tech companies innovating for the first time in transportation, and they're going up against Goliaths who are fighting, putting ABS brakes and putting backup cameras in cars. And they were being forced to do so by the government. So this is an industry ripe for change, and they are going, kicking, and screaming. Now, this is what happens. But this is what happens when technology goes right. All right, this is, you're here, car behind. This is what happens when technology goes right. Ladies and gentlemen, that truck stopped itself. That's what happens when technology goes right. Watch it again for a second time and you'll see a lot more information than you did the first time. Imagine you're that truck driver. You can't see behind the bus. You can't see that happen. Now that kid ran a few feet, but in reality, if those sensors were not there, that kid wouldn't have, sneakers would have been on the floor. This is what we are trying to do at Luminar Technologies. We're trying to make things safe, and that is a Volvo automated stopping system. But that's not good enough either. Okay. So we've got a long ways to go. Every year in this country, in the US, every working day, the equivalent of a 737 drops out of the sky. But it happens periodically. So imagine Monday, a Southwest jet drops out of the sky. Tuesday, United. Wednesday, Delta jet. Show our hands who's getting on an airplane on Thursday. It's not going to happen. But unless 2 weeks ago where a limousine in New York State crashes and 20 people die at once, it doesn't make the headlines. It may make the news locally for a night that there's a car accident off of I-Drive where a pedestrian died. But 35,000 deaths per year in this country. That's insane. By 2060, all the ADAS features will do, they're saying 30% reduction. By 2040, 20% reduction in accidents. So that's the features that are in my car today that are probably in your cars with blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning, automated emergency braking like you just saw. All those sensors, all those technology, all of that is going to get you 20% reduction in accidents. We can do better. Autonomous vehicles are the path to do so. The problem is, if you look at what an autonomous vehicle can do today, and you look at the slope, the rate at which change is happening, unfortunately, we are looking at, when you take that 20 to 50% reduction in, 20 to 50% performance improvement year after year, we're 25 years out until those self-driving vehicles that everyone is promising you will be the future are as safe as humans. We're going to have to give these vehicle crutches. We're going to have to geofence them. We're going to have to geoconstrain them. All right, but what do these cars really look like? What does it mean? This is the future we're being told. Sit back, watch Netflix, and go enjoy yourselves. We're going to get increased productivity. It's going to be a more comfortable experience. You don't even need windshields. The reality is we are so far away from this. So first, let's start about what SAE levels, SAE J3016 is how they define, the SAE Society of Automotive Engineers define things. Level 1, feet off. Show of hands, who here has got cruise control in your car? Congratulations, you now all have self-driving cars. Cruise control, feet off. Things get fun at 2, hands off. That's 2 things at once. Your hands are off, the car will stay in its lane, and it's got automated cruise control. That's level 2. Then things start getting scary, level 3. Now you're taking your eyes off the road. Hopefully you're not watching a movie because you don't know when you're going to re-engage. How do you know? Then there's level 4 that everyone talks about, mind off. This is what I define as a self-driving car, level 4. The human is not required to safely get out of a situation. The car gets you out of that situation and then says, all right, I need help. Get me back on the highway or get me back to where I need to go. Or level 5, no driving. The problem with level 3 is no one can define who's in charge. Who has to regain control and in what period of time are you going to take to get situational awareness after you've taken your eyes off the road? So companies like Tesla, who offer this, you have to touch the steering wheel every few seconds. GM went so far as to put a sensor that looks at the human and makes sure their eyes are open. And if they're not open long enough or they're not looking at the road, they disengage. That tells you the state of the technology. We can do better, and when we do, we get really cool things that are going to happen. Why make a pizza and then have a driver drive it to you when you can make the pizza on the way? And go out and pick up that pizza from the Pizza Hut or Domino's car. We can talk about delivering groceries or having a portable bodega that just drives around and says, yeah, I want an apple, I want a pepper. And you can have this food delivered directly to your location and use an autonomous vehicle to go do that. But it's the transformation that technology provides to the urban landscape, stuff that Chris was talking about, that's just the beginning. This is where things get really, really interesting because the same studies that look at this say, hey, we've got some major changes coming. Because if autonomous vehicles can get into the market and be pervasive as we think they're going to be, by 2030, we are talking about doing things. 2040, we're talking about having 90% reduction in accidents, not 20%. And it starts in phases. So my upper left-hand corner is my favorite. Anyone recognize I-4? The construction, all those changes. Nobody likes commuting nowadays. I still love to drive a car, especially a sports car, but I hate to commute. The next one's Sunram. Some people may not know that in Maitland, Longwood, other municipalities, the local governments are subsidizing Uber rides from the train station or to or from the train station for that last mile delivery. Well, imagine you're living up north in a month that ends in Okay, it's cold up there in December. And you take the subway or the L or whatever it is, and that last mile you need a ride home. Well, what if that car was sitting there waiting for you? Heat was on, ready to go, and you had to walk the 300-400 feet to get in that car, and it took you that last mile. And you weren't waiting for a taxi, you weren't waiting 10 minutes. That's the opportunity. The vehicle-to-vehicle infrastructure, the dedicated lanes that can be dedicated for these cars. And if you look at the progression up here, you can see how land use planning changes, how the parking lots disappear. You're going to talk about how difficult it is today to get a bond underwritten for our parking structure today. Because in 30 years, are we going to need them? How do you do that? So you look at bicycle lanes replacing where people are parking. You don't have to do anything more than get rid of the place where people are parking because there's no cars to park. Anyone want to guess what the average utilization rate of a car is today?
4%.
Who said 5%? 5? Anyone else? 4%. 3. 2 to 3. 2 to 3% of the time a car is in use, which means the other 97% of the time, somebody's paying for parking. It's just sitting there. It's a waste. So we can reclaim that time, we can make things safer. We've got vehicle-to-vehicle communications, cars, fleets, pods, they're all traveling independently and more energy efficient, and they're electrified. And then, speaking of parking cars, all right, so in Central Florida, people have storage units, garages. And well, what if you didn't own a car? What could you do with that extra space? How can you transform it? And you're seeing this happen around the world, where people are transforming their garages into extra living space. There's other things beyond self-driving cars, believe it or not. Hyperloop, they call it the fifth mode of transportation. If anyone from here, I'm sure, has driven to Miami, 3.5 hours or so, get down to Miami. If you're lucky, maybe a little bit longer. And 3 hours, 52 minutes from Orlando to Miami. No one flies, or rarely flies, because it's 3 hours and 25 minutes, which you take into account security, TSA, that water bottle that you forgot to take out. No one likes that. You can drive, you can fly, you can take Greyhound, or you can take Hyperloop and be there in 27 minutes, and they'll leave every 3 minutes. And this is really cool technology. You've got a big jet that pushes the air, or what's left of the air, pushes the thrust. You're flying at the equivalent of 200,000 feet. That's how much air is in that tube. And you're magnetically levitating above the ground just enough to reduce friction. And as you're going through and they're sucking all that air out, you're just pulling the energy from solar panels that are charging the whole thing electrically. This is the future of transportation. It's a picture I took at CES last year where I got to see some of this stuff up close. But then again, who needs roads? Because we can do better than that. Look at these self-flying cars. That's how I want to get around town. Why stay on I-4 if I don't need to go down I-4? And so Uber is looking at self-flying cars and automated cars, and the same automation is actually easier in the air. And so you're seeing these velocopters that I got to sit in and check out that are going to be fully automated. You don't need to be a pilot to operate them. This is the future of transportation. Uber, Airbus, Google, they're all putting millions and millions into this technology. I can't wait to be an astronaut. I miss my window to being in NASA. But Blue Origins has got a program for me. SpaceX has got opportunities for me. Virgin Galactic. I want to go to the moon. Within my lifetime, it is possible to do so. The future of transportation looks really bright. If rockets can take off and who would have thought 10 years ago that a rocket would be able to go up and then re-land? It's great because I know friends who had to go out and catch those solid rocket boosters out in the ocean and then bring them back and get them redone. So to be able to see this and do something like Blue Origin and go for a quick ride, man, I would love that. Imagine how life can be transformed. Imagine how science can be transformed, being able to quickly do an experiment and come back down. This is the future of transportation. But why? This is why I do what I do. One, like any single dad, I have an 11-year-old daughter. I don't want her to drive a car. I don't want that to happen. And frankly, she doesn't understand what the big deal is anyways. But that's a want. That's not a need. That's my son, Jonathan. Jonathan is 13. Jonathan has autism. I don't know if Jonathan is ever going to drive. But I want Jonathan to be able to have transportation that's safe and reliable. And I'm not talking about not getting into a car accident. I'm talking about I don't know who's driving that car. And I don't know how he's going to be able to protect himself. And that scares me more than anything in the world. How do I provide for him? I don't care if his dream job is working at Publix bagging groceries. Until it all goes self-delivered, of course. But I want safe, reliable transportation for my son. The conversation that I'm going to have with my daughter about the responsibilities associated with driving are going to be nothing compared to the conversation I'm going to have with my parents about the responsibilities of driving. When you look at this, all these baby boomers, and as they age, they're going to get to a point where it's no longer safe for them to be driving. And yet, the fundamental freedom that I got by getting car keys and being taught by my father how to drive, now I'm going to have the conversation with my dad about my dad not driving. I don't know anyone in this room who wants to have that conversation. Some of you may have already done so. If we can provide a way for my parents to live in their home longer, and all of our parents and all of our loved ones longer, yes, we're still going to need to check in with them next door. We're going to have to make sure they're okay. But at some point, they need to go to the doctor's office. At some point, they need to go to the grocery store. At some point, they want to go out to the movies. At some point, they want to have their life that they've been accustomed to. They want to go to dinner downtown. If I can provide safe, reliable transportation that's affordable for people on limited budgets, and they don't have to be driving, what a great world. There's a lot of good, as you saw in that Volvo automated emergency braking, that can come from technology like this. It will transform things. It'll transform the workforce. It's going to transform the urban landscape. And I am so, so proud to be a very, very small part of that. But it's not just me. We have a team within Luminar of 400 people that are dedicated to this. They are passionate about this. Some of them are in the room today. For Nico, it's going to be transformational for his life. For my team, it's transformational for all the things that they have. I've been rear-ended twice in the last year. This is personal for my entire team, and this is done by our entire team. And I want to thank them for all the hard work that they did. Thank you.